Good morning students and welcome back. Today we will learn History, second lesson, Historiography, Indian Tradition. In the first lesson, we have learned the tradition of Western historiography. We came to know how the European scholars wrote history, what method they applied in writing history. Similarly, in today's lesson, we will study about the Indian tradition of writing history. Who are the important historians of India and how Indian history has been written. So let's begin with the lesson, Indian tradition. Indian history is divided in three parts: ancient history, medieval history, and modern history. So first we will learn historiography in the ancient period. In the ancient period in India, memories of great deeds of ancestors and mythological lore means stories, and memories of social transitions were preserved with the help of oral recitals. Oral recitals means orally said poems, stories. So in ancient period, mythological stories, poems, stories of ancestors and about their bravery were passed from generation to generation in oral form. Then we found inscriptions on the Harappan seals and other artifacts. Artifacts means old materials found in excavation. Through these found inscriptions, we came to know that Indians were knowing the art of writing as early as 3rd millennium BCE, or maybe before 3rd millennium also. 1 millennium means 1000 years. So the period between 2001 to 3000 BCE is 3rd millennium. Students, do you know we are also in 3rd millennium now? But we are in AD period, that is Anno Domini, and the inscriptions found are of 3rd millennium BCE, that is of before Christ era. But the Harappan script is yet not deciphered. Deciphered means to decode or to translate. That means Harappan script is still now not understood by the historians. Historians are still trying to decode the script. Some earliest written documents were found in India are in the form of inscriptions. They are of 3rd century BCE of Emperor Ashok Maurya's times. His edicts means orders given by King Ashoka, were inscribed on natural rocks and on stone pillars. You can see in this picture, these written edicts are of this pillar. Then 1st century Common Era, that means AD period now. Coins, metal images, sculptures, copper plates were discovered, which tells that inscriptions begin from 1st century. And this inscriptions also provides historical information like dates of various kings, means period of kings' rule from when till when. Dynastic genealogies. Dynastic means hereditary rulers. For example, learning about Maurya's dynasty. Chandragupta Maurya was the founder of the Maurya's empire. Then his son King Bindusara. Then his son King Ashoka. So learning of rulers in line is called dynastic genealogies. Then by learning these inscriptions, we also come to know about the territorial extent done by the king and administration of various empires, political events, social organization, climate, famine of the respective times. The ancient Indian literature also includes epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, Purans. Purans means holy book, Jain and Buddhist text, historical accounts by Indian authors, and travelogues. Travelogues means a book written by traveler who visited places. So many foreigners who visited India wrote about their experiences in a book called travelogue. All this literature and epics are important sources of history. Writing of biographies of kings were found. Biographies means life story of someone is written by other person. So book Harshacharit was written in 7th century Common Era by Banabhatta, is about King Harsha's biography. By reading this book, we come to know about the social life during King Harsha's reign and also about economical, political, religious and cultural life during King Harsha's time. You would like to know this about Shohagaura copper plate. The copper plate was found at Shohagaura, that is in Gorakhpur district, Uttar Pradesh. It is supposed to be from the Mauryan period. The inscription on it is in Brahmi script. The symbols known as tree in railing and mountains at the beginning of the inscriptions are also seen on the coins. Another symbols which looks like a structure erected on 4 pillars is supposed to be indicative of a granary. Granary means to store food grains. So food grains were stored in the granary and was distributed to the people during the time of famine. So this gives us the idea that the kings were taking precautions during the time of famines. So this is how we came to know about the ancient history of India through oral sources, inscriptions and by manuscripts. Now next we shall learn historiography in the medieval period. The style of writing Rajtarangini, the history of Kashmir by Kalhana in the 12th century Common Era is quite close to the concept of modern historiography. We have already learnt in the first lesson about the modern historiography. It is to critically examine the documents, inscriptions and coins. In ancient history, people used to believe in what ancestors said and not used to do any research. But when Kalhana wrote Rajtarangini, he also critically examined various sources, like he did research on inscriptions, coins, ancient monuments, dynastic records and local traditions. In medieval period, Mughals were ruling in India. So many historians in the court of Muslim rulers were influenced by Arabic and Persian historiography. Ziauddin Barani wrote a book Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi. According to him, historians should not only write about rulers' valor, that is bravery, and about policies of welfare, but they should also write about the rulers' failures and about incorrect policies. Now tell me students, why there is a need to learn about any king's failures, about his lost battle, about his wrong policies? Yes, there is a need to learn about failures also. Because what mistakes our ancestors did, that mistake we should not do. So it is important to learn about the king's failures also. And therefore, Ziauddin Barani said, while writing achievements of king, it is also equally important to write about king's failures. Further, Ziauddin Barani said, historians should also write about the impact, that is, effect of the teachings of the wise, the learned, the saints on cultural life of people. That means, after the teachings done by saints or educated people, it is important to know what change took place in cultural life of people, so that people will come to know about the effect of teachings. Thus, Barani expanded the scope of historiography. Babur was the founder of Mughal Empire in India. He wrote an autobiography, Tuzuk-e-Babari. In this book, he wrote about the battles fought by him. Babur also wrote about his observations of various places and cities he visited, about the local tradition, economy, customs, and the flora. That means about the trees and plants. Abul Fazl wrote the book Akbarnama, in which he wrote about the reign of Akbar and also followed the critical method of historiography, collected authentic, that is original historical documents, did scrutiny, that is verification, and wrote about the Akbar's reality. And he was not biased to write only in favor, but wrote about the realistic of Akbar's life. Now next we shall learn about Bakar. Bakar is an important type of historical document of medieval times. Actually, the word Bakar means to tell the news, and it is also called as biography of eminent statesmen of the Maratha period. Bakar contains elegies, that is, praises of the kings, stories of historic events, battles and lives of great men. Marathi Bakars are of various types. Sabhasad Bakar was written by Krishnaji Anant Sabhasad during the time of Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj. Through this book, we get information about the rule of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Next Bakar is Bahu Saibanchi Bakar, which describes about the Battle of Panipat. Then another Bakar is Panipatachi Bakar. It also describes about the third Battle of Panipat. Next book is Holkaranchi Kaifiyat. Kaifiyat means rule. Holkars were also very brave like Marathas, and this book contains information about Holkars and their contribution to the Maratha rule. Bakars can be divided into various types, such as biographies of kings, dynastic history, descriptions of events, history of a particular society, autobiographies regarding grievances based on mythologies, and state administration by a king. Now let's see, do you know? This content is very important from the point of objectives, that is, identify the wrong pair and for the webs. So prepare it thoroughly. Many foreign scholars and travelers visited India and then wrote many books on India. So let's see who are the foreign scholars visited India. Al-Biruni wrote in Arabic about Indian knowledge and social life. Hasan Nizami wrote Tajul Masir. Minaj-e-Siraj wrote Tabakat-e-Nasiri. Amir Khusrau wrote Tuzuk-e-Taimuri. The autobiography of Taimur-e-Lang was also known as Amir Taimur. Yahya bin Ahmad Sairandi wrote Tariq-e-Mubarak Shahi. Their accounts provide us with historic information of Sultanate period, that means about the Mughals' rule. Now let's see the names of the foreign travelers who visited India. Ibn Battuta, Abdul Razak, Marco Polo, Niccolo Conti, Barbosa and Domingos Pace. These are the foreign travelers' names. Now note down the historians of Aurangzeb's time. Ishwar Das Nagar, Bhimsen Saxena, Kafi Khan and Niccolo Manussi. So these were the people who were the time of Aurangzeb's rule. So this is all about medieval period. How medieval period historians got influenced by Arabic and Persian historiography and then started writing books on Mughal rulers. And Bakars gave information about the Maratha rulers. So because of all these historians and from their books, we came to know about the medieval history. Now let's learn about the third part, that is historiography in the modern period. Modern period was a period of Britishers' rule in India. And Britishers are the one who wrote many books on Indian history. So let's learn historiography in the modern period. In the 20th century, the Indian archaeological exploration and research started under the British rule. Archaeological exploration is the method by which archaeologists try to detect or explore the sites and does the study on the remains, that is, the objects found or any materials found. A number of ancient sites were excavated under the supervision of Sir Alexander Cunningham, who was the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. Remember this for the objectives. That is, Sir Alexander Cunningham was the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. For excavation, whichever sites he selected was taken or read from the Buddhist text. Harappan civilization was discovered during the tenure of Sir John Marshall. So remember this, that excavation of Harappan civilization was done during the time of Sir John Marshall. Now earlier, we were not aware of our Indian history. But after the discovery of Harappan civilization, we came to know about Indian history and also could be traced that it was from 3rd millennium BCE or even earlier. 3 volumes of The History of British India was written by James Mill and were published in 1817. 3 volumes means the book The History of British India was written in 3 parts or in 3 books. Remember this for the objective. That is, The History of British India was the first book on Indian history written by a British historian, James Mill. But when the Britishers were writing book on Indian history, they wrote dark side of Indian culture. They wrote bad things about Indian culture. They were criticizing Indian culture and praised their Western culture and wrote good about British rule in India. So such type of history was written by Britishers. The book The History of India was written by Mount Stuart Elphinstone, who was the governor of Bombay, now we called as Mumbai, and it was published in 1841. So remember this also for the objective. That is, the history of India was written by Mount Stuart Elphinstone. The period of Maratha Empire is also very important in the Indian history. British officer Granduff wrote the book on Maratha history. The book entitled A History of Marathas. The book A History of Maratha was also published in 3 volumes. Granduff also condemned Indian culture in his writing. Condemned means criticized or showed bad about Indian culture. Similarly, Colonel Todd also wrote about the book on Rajasthan history. William Wilson Hunter wrote 2 volumes on Indian history. His writing showed impartial treatment. That means Wilson Hunter did not do partiality in writing Indian history. He did not write bad about Indian culture and people. Nilkant Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade were 2 Indian historians who wrote book on Marathas history, and they proved Granduff's writing was wrong. Granduff was the one who wrote book on Maratha history, but he wrote all in favor of British rule and culture. So Nilkant Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade exposed Granduff's writings for showing the wrong side of Indian culture. They pointed that everything written by Granduff was not correct. So this is all about modern historiography. Our Indian history was written by the European historians. Next we shall learn about Indian historians in the next lecture. So goodbye and take care.